BMW has established a great reputation for ingenuity and efficiency when it comes to electric cars, but this is the most important of all of them, the BMW i5. Now, the 5 Series goes back as far as 1972, so it really does have a long old history to live up to. A huge reputation, the 5 Series, not least because this is the first ever pure electric 5 Series. The previous generation you could get it as a plug-in hybrid, but now this all new 8th generation, well, you can get it with petrol, plug-in hybrid, and of course the all-electric i5. It's certainly got numbers on its side. The BMW i5 eDrive 40 that we're testing is rear-wheel drive, gets 335 brake, and will do 0 to 62 miles per hour in 6 seconds, while the official WLTP tests put range up to 354 miles. Prices start from under £68,000, which, unsurprisingly, puts the i5 right on the nose of other plush electric cars like the Mercedes EQE. You can also get the comically powerful and comically expensive BMW i5 M60 version of this, but I'm going to talk about that bit more in a second. Meanwhile, what do you think of the way this looks? This is the M Sport eDrive 40. I don't love it, I don't hate it, it's just a bit, I don't know, it really doesn't grab me. There's something a bit rodentish about the front end of the 5 Series, I think. It's almost like the kidney grille has become its buck teeth or something. I would also say, because this is the M Sport trim, it gets this contrast panel. It's not so obvious when it's in this nice blue colour, but particularly in lighter colours, this really stands out. I don't think it does it any favours. I prefer the standard Sport model because it does without this contrast panel and has a different fascia, and I just think it looks a bit more handsome and understated, which to my mind is what you want from a 5 Series. Anyway, enough about the way that it looks. What's it like to live with? Well, for a start, the boot is pretty decent. You get 490 litres, plus there's cable storage under that boot floor. It is a shame that there's no frunk under that enormous bonnet, but at least there is, joy of joys, a practical estate-bodied touring version. I can't see that anyone's going to complain about the comfort and space in the back of the i5. There's masses of legroom. Maybe if you're, over 6 foot, you might find headroom a little bit tight, especially if you've got the panoramic roof here, which is standard on the M Sport, optional on the lower spec car. And I have to say, I just really like it because you can also add the comfort pack, which gets these little mounts in the back of the front seats with a charging port. I think that's really neat. Or you can go for the Comfort Plus pack, which gets loads of stuff, including upfront keyless entry, heated steering wheel, loads of stuff that people are going to want anyway. And that also brings dual zone climate control and heated seats for the rear passengers. It's also a really smart, comfortable place up front, and even the base Sport model gets wireless phone charging and BMW's curved display with the latest operating system 8 software. Now, as I've mentioned, I would go for the Sport trim, which is the cheaper option. I think it looks better outside. I would add the Comfort Plus pack, which is £5 it's quite expensive, but it does come with loads of features that you want. I'd add the panoramic roof and I would leave it at that. I think it's a really smart car at that point. You've got a really nicely spec car, and you're still spending pretty much what you would have spent on an M Sport that doesn't get a lot of those features. So that's all good. And, obviously this test car has got everything in it. So this crystal, the dials and everything, that's a £600 option. But you do get these backlit trim inserts as standard. They're pretty funky. You can change the colour on those. You can have a bit of lavender kind of colours and this kind of thing. It's it's all quite fancy, but it's quite nice too. I wouldn't bother with the carbon fibre. What I do think about the 5 Series is that it feels like quite a traditional executive car in the dash architecture, and obviously you can get this as a petrol and PHEV as well. And I think that's good because its nemesis, its closest rival, the Mercedes EQE, feels quite spaceshipy and futuristic. So that's really a matter of taste, whether you want to go for that really kind of like in-your-face, bespoke electric, very techie feel that the EQE has, or whether you want to go for a slightly more traditional, conventional feel like the i5. They're both, of course, really kind of tech-heavy, not least of which being the touchscreen in the i5, which I think is really lovely, really nice big panoramic curved screen. The graphics are fantastic. All the features that you use on a routine basis are actually quite easy to find, so I really don't mind it. But as soon as you want to find anything that isn't basically Apple CarPlay or Nav, you end up in this kind of world of tiny icons with just scrolling through millions of tiny menus, and it's just, you can't compute that when you're driving. So I do think that that's really poorly thought out for BMW, who traditionally have been very good at these systems. So yeah, that's one gripe, but other than that, I do really like this system. Rapid charging in the i5 is up to 205 kilowatts, which means that the 81 kilowatt hour usable battery will be charged at up to 80% in under 30 minutes, or a 100 mile top up will take about 10 minutes. Plug in at a 7 kilowatt home charger and you'll have a full charge in 13 to 14 hours. So I have to say the i5 is rather peachy to drive. It's very lovely, 335 brake, 6 seconds 0 to 62. You don't need any more than that. This feels like a fast car as it is. It's 2.2 tonnes. You don't need to be flinging that around at 6 seconds to 62 as it is, basically. So it does feel like a really rapid car. And more than that, it's got that lovely sort of BMW generally do ride and handling balance so nicely. And that's what the 5 has been famous for, and the i5 is still right up there. It really is one of the nicest electric cars to drive. It's got a really nice organic feel to it. It's very easy to jump in and just everything's where you want it to be. The steering responds how you expect it to. It feels direct, but it's not too nervous around the dead ahead. It's really, really lovely. One caveat about this being a very intuitive car is that the brake recuperation, which is where the car brakes when you lift off the throttle, every electric car has it. You've got 3 modes. You have to go through the screen to vary that, which really annoys me because it's very not too easy to do that. You have to go through loads of menus. But you can have it in adaptive mode as well. And it's all right, but I do find that it's a bit intrusive. It kind of gets a bit ahead of itself with traffic up ahead and all that stuff. And so you do have to get used to that a little bit. But nonetheless, like I said, just really lovely to drive. It's fast enough, it's properly punchy. Tell you what, you can even stick it in sport mode here, and then it makes all kinds of funny noises. It is, yeah, you can sort of have it doing all kinds of weird and wonderful things. You can even have it in, so you've obviously got your shortcuts down here as well as your rotary controller. Expressive mode, which brings up all kinds of fancy colours on the dash. Even the ambient lighting here dances around. And if you just do sort of a light, sort of a bit of a gentle acceleration, it sounds like a cruise ship in the distance or something, sort of foghorn in the distance. I mean, let's face it, it's so unnecessary. Like, what is that? I mean, it makes all kinds of weird noises. It's a gimmick, isn't it? It's a massive gimmick. It's kind of entertaining. I reckon you're going to use it, 2 or 3 times in the first month that you've got this car, and then you're going to forget all about it and just go back to the trusty old personal mode, which to the rest of us is just known as the default mode, and that's fine. And in that mode, throttle response, steering response, all of that stuff, just so. I really like it. As for ride comfort, well, we are in the M Sport car with 20-inch wheels and Pirelli tyres. It's a little bit lively at lower speeds over things like recessed drain covers, that sort of thing, but generally it's really nice, especially given, I think, the balance between that nice sort of neat handling and body control and well-damped ride. It's really nice. It's just exactly what you want from an executive car. I do think that the slightly smaller alloy wheels that you get on the lower spec car that I've already mentioned would be my choice. That does improve things a little bit, so that's another score 1 for the standard sport model. Now, I said earlier I was going to talk about the M60 because the M60 is the big M model of the i5. It's really fast, it's 4-wheel drive, you look at the numbers on it and you just think, wow, that's really cool. It's not. The E40 that we've got here is honestly nicer to drive. I've driven the M60 a number of times and it is super rapid, but it just doesn't feel like a proper M car in terms of the handling. In some ways it feels less entertaining than this, actually. It's quite heavy, it's rapid in a straight line, but it's not, I think, a proper M car. And let's face it, it's not as good to drive as you want it to be, and it's hugely expensive. So just don't do it, I don't think. Just buy this instead, it's much nicer. As for real-world efficiency, we saw nearly 260 miles to a charge, which is pretty good given that this is the M Sport model on big wheels. Stick with the Sport model on smaller wheels and you'll see slightly better results. In the winter and on a motorway run, expect range to be around about 220 to 230 miles. So I think the real strength of the i5 is that it does feel different to its main rival, the EQE, and I suspect it will feel different again to the forthcoming Audi A6 electric when that comes out too. So it really is a cool thing, and more importantly, it's still got the BMW selling point of being, I think, the best handling and riding car in the class. It's got a really sweet balance to it, the eDrive 40, and I really do like it for that, and that is why I would buy it. And I also actually prefer the touchscreen interface in the BMW to the Mercedes too. But you are going to go further in between charges in the Mercedes if you are looking at these two directly too, so there's that. Maybe I'd like to see this a little bit more efficient. Nonetheless, it's a really, really lovely thing, the i5. if you don't mind the way it looks and you don't mind the fact that there are cars out there that go further, well, I think it's a winner. Head to cargurus.co.uk for a whole host of fantastic used cars, including loads of great 5 Series, by the way. And please do like the video while we've got you here, subscribe to the Car Gurus UK YouTube channel, ring that little bell so that you don't miss any of our videos, and I'll see you on the next one.